Welcome back. We are ACI Course 9, Class 5. It's June 23rd, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being for you as a manifestation. You do your opening prayers on your own. I'll be back. Something does not want me to do this class.
Yeah.
Teacher.
Let's do it. So last class, we learned we learned about the individual freedom vows for the layperson. We learned one category of those vows was the 24-hour vows that we do from time to time. And those 24-hour vows had 4 primary vows and 4 secondary vows. And the 4 primary vows we learned were avoiding sexual activity, killing, lying, and I'm missing one, stealing. And in my answer key, it said, not killing a human or a human fetus, and it said not lying about our spiritual progress. And I believe that that's an error in the answer key, because that's true of the layperson vows, but for the one-day vows, we're asked to avoid killing at all, killing or contributing to killing at all, or lying at all for one 24-hour period. Come on, right? We can almost do that with not killing. Like we kill stuff when we breathe, I guess. But we could, right? We could seclude ourselves such that we don't walk on grass or drive our car or whatever. So we're being really, really strict in our discipline of avoiding harm in those specific ways for one 24-hour period of time. Then the secondary vows are those things that we do that so easily lead us to have the mental afflictions that make us do killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, etc. So we avoid using seats or beds too costly or high, using intoxicants, singing, dancing, adorning ourselves, making ourselves look more beautiful, and eating afternoon. So again, not that those things are bad, but they are arenas for mental afflictions. And so we're just saving ourselves the trouble on that one 24-hour period of time to put ourselves through a day where we just avoid things that could bring on mental afflictions, right? In the Vinaya level of practice, it's about avoidance so that we don't trigger those mental afflictions from which we act badly that makes mental afflictions in the future. So then we learn the 5 lifetime layperson's vows, where we decide for the length of my whole life, I will avoid harming in these very specific ways. And it's set up so that we can be successful. I will avoid killing a human and a human fetus. I will avoid stealing anything of value. I will avoid adultery. I will avoid lying about my spiritual realizations, and I will avoid intoxicating my mind or contributing to the intoxicated mind of others. And then there's the additional piece of the 5 lifetime lay vows, which is, I will follow my refuge advices. Like, that's the only way we're going to be able to do the other 5 is if we have some guideline for where our protection comes from. If it's not from these things that we usually go to protection from, you can't say to somebody, none of those outer worldly things work to do what you think they're going to do, and just leave us hanging. There needs to be something else, right? And so we learn that that something else is our understanding of the marriage of karma and emptiness. And so our refuge are in the ones who know that, the ones who have taught it, what they've taught, and the ones who are demonstrating it to us out in the world. So we live in ways to perpetuate our relationship with those. So this class is supposed to be about the vows for the ordained person. And traditionally, we're not supposed to talk about the vows for the ordained person with non-ordained persons. So Geshe Michael decided that he would tell us about the categories of ordained vows, not the specific ordained vows so much, and the process through which someone would use their vows to progress on their path, in the sense of in the ordained pathway, there's beginning vows, right? And then there's full vows. And for women, there are some intermediary steps. So anyway, Geshe Michael posed this question. He said, if you were a woman and decided you wanted to reach nirvana, what are the steps you would need to go through to commit yourself to reaching that goal? Now, he says nirvana because we're studying the vows that are at the level of personal freedom, meaning the attainment for personal freedom we learned is reaching our own nirvana. We're the ones that have to do it, and we're the ones that gain the benefit. So we're at the individual freedom vow. So maybe that woman really has in mind, I'm going to reach my total Buddhahood. Or maybe somewhere along the way, she goes, oh, beyond nirvana, there's stuff. But if nirvana were her goal, this is what she would do. And it's a topic called Nyeme Punsok. So let me get our screen share here. Okay. Nyeme Punsok. Punsok means perfect. Nyeme means no problem, right? No problems, or Nyeme. Nyeme Punsok means then like faultless. What would be the faultless progression that she would go through in her commitment to reaching her nirvana? There's an order in which you take your vows. And keeping the vows that you've got builds the foundation of goodness that then helps us both grow and maintain the next vows that we get. And that's true even outside of the ordination system. First, we take our refuge. Then we take our lifetime lay vows if we're taking vows. Then we take our bodhisattva vows. Then we take our diamond way vows, because they build. You could take refuge 5 lifetimes lay bodhisattva vows, all while you in the midst of getting your diamond way vows. Somebody could do that. But then you see, they'd be relying on past lives, karmic goodness to be able to carry them. And who knows what their this life baggage was going to bring to the party. So it's not ideal. It could be done, but this Nyeme Punsok is like the ideal way to grow through our spiritual path of using vows to propel our progress. So of course she would have started with renunciation. To even reach the idea, I want to reach my nirvana, she must have had some level of renunciation. Or who would think of that goal? I want to reach being free of mental afflictions due to my individual analysis forever. She had to already have recognized that worldly life is about pain, about disappointment, about trying to get happy and never quite getting it, or even when you do get it, it doesn't last. And always disappointed, always wanting for more, ups goes to downs. Do you remember that list of human sufferings? When that's full on in her face and she says, there's nothing in this worldly life for me, and she wants to commit herself to nirvana, that's the start of it. Without that, even if somebody is inclined to go for their ordination, without that renunciation, their vows aren't going to take strong enough to be able to keep the behaviors well. So the first step is renunciation. I didn't even write it in here. Then she would initiate this process of getting her vows. So this is a woman who's decided she wants to go the ordained route. The first thing she does is take her Genyan-ma. The Genyan-ma are the lifetime lay woman's vows. So she hasn't left the home life yet. She's just declared herself to living according to those 5 lifetime lay vows and her refuge advices, promising to keep that vowed behavior for that whole lifetime. She's saying to her own mind, my hope and faith are now in ethical living. That's where happiness will come from. So my ethical living is my protection from perpetuating my suffering world. She's committing herself to behavior choosing, right? Intentional behavior choosing that will avoid things that would continue to block her from gaining the wisdom necessary to truly be able to stop perpetuating suffering. The goodness result of keeping those behaviors is sooner or later that direct perception of emptiness. So she gains the wisdom through which her behaviors can now actually be the causes for the nirvana that she intends to reach. So by taking her vows, she's committed her own mind, right, to living in this different way. Are the deeds very different? No, probably she wasn't somebody that went around tromping on bugs, killing things to begin with. Now, right, she's living with greater intention on purpose to gather the goodness. To grow her wisdom. So the point of our lifetime lay vows is our refuge, our protection from perpetuating suffering through those specific behaviors, avoiding those behaviors, and then doing their opposites. I will protect life because then I won't get close to killing a human or a human fetus. I will speak truthfully about everything, and then I won't get close to speaking wrongly about my spiritual path, right? I will avoid interfering with any partnership in any way. I'll find out, P, are you in a partnership? Like, do you have a partnership at work? Where are your partnerships so that I can help you strengthen those partnerships and not get in the middle of them? Right? I mean, we don't do that, but we could. Stealing anything of value. How do I be so safe around other people's stuff? Other people's lives, other people's fears. How do I be so safe that they don't feel any fear around me? Those kinds of things, right? How do I keep my mind bright and clear? So next might come her decision to do this as an ordained person. And if so, she would go to a qualified person, qualified ordained person, to serve as her mentor and vow giver and request vows. And then what she would likely receive first is called the Parma Rabjum. It means, I don't know the actual. It's not an actual vow, but it's a commitment to leave the home life, which is like a test period for leaving the home life. And there's not a specific period of time declared, but between the person and let's call it the abbot, although it's not necessarily the abbot of the monastery, the vow giver, the vow master, they would determine how long would this period be. So it would be as if she's given up the home life, but she hasn't quite yet. So for the monastics, for the men, traditionally a family would give one of their male children to the monastery, and it usually happened when the boy was about 7 years old. And the 7-year-olds would go into the monastery and have this ceremony in which they get their Parma Rabjung. They're probably called vows, but they're not vows. It's a commitment, because you can't take a vow until you're 20 years old or older. It's something about the maturity of our mind to make that decision and have the strong enough motivation for vows to actually grow. So there's this 14-year period of time, right? Do I have that right? 13-year period of time for the young men where they wear robes, they live in the monastery, they do the monastic lifestyle, but they aren't technically monks yet. We call them monks, but they're not yet. They have this Parma Rabjung. So for this woman, we're presuming she's already adult. She makes this decision. She goes to live in the nunnery. She wears her robes. She does the nun's thing, but she isn't technically a nun. So, she could, after some period of time, decide, this is really not my path. And she could say at the end of her Parma Rabjung period, no, I think that this is not for me. And you see, she doesn't have vows that she needs to give up. She can change her mind. And it doesn't interfere with her spiritual growth. So it's a sweet system, really, to have this time where you can test it out. For an adult man, I'm not sure. They probably could do the same. I don't know how it works in that way. So she takes her Parma Rabjung period of time. And suppose at the end of that, she's like, yes, I want nun's vows. The first level that she receives is the Getzo-ma. Getzo means the novice nun's vows. In the novice nun's vows, there's 4 primary, 6 secondary, and 3 transgressions in their most basic form. The 4 are the same 4 as the 4 primary vows in the one-day vows. No sexual activity, no killing, no stealing, no lying. Now, for her lifetime, the 6 secondary vows are like the secondary vows of the one-day vows, but they have an additional factor about handling money and something else, two additional factors. How you dress. And then how you dress is in the 3 transgressions. So they're altogether 13 vows of the novice nun. Same number for the novice monk. Yike, we lost Victor. Victor's back. So she can stay at her Getzo-ma level if she wants. Or after some period of time, she can go to her vow master and say, please, please, I want my full ordination. And that the vow master, will do whatever they do. There's, some kind of evaluation that happens. And if it is agreed that she will go on, the next thing she would receive is what's called the gelobma. Gelobma is the intermediate nun's vows. So to the Getzo-ma vows, those 13, is added 12 more commitments, not vows, but commitments for 2 more years. Those commitments are divided into 2 kinds, the Tsawe Chudruk and the Jetun Chudruk. Chudruk means 6 things. So Tsawe means the 6 primary things. And Jetun Chudruk means the 6 secondary things. So again, primary and secondary categories of intermediate non-additional commitments for 2 years. These are the 6 primary, the 6 primary ones have to do with guidelines for behaviors when she would find herself in situations where she's having to deal with other people, in particular, other people of the opposite sex. How to do so in a way that doesn't, give wrong impressions, doesn't contribute to mental afflictions in the other person's mind, doesn't contribute to mental afflictions in her own mind, right? Specific behavioral ways for specific situations where mental afflictions arise. And then the 6 secondary are guidelines of behaviors to avoid that have to do more with everyday life within the monastery. how to procure and store food, how to eat properly, these kinds of things. So she gets a glimpse into the full ordained nuns' vows through these 12 additional commitments to see how it goes. Again, presumably, at the end of the 2-year time frame, she could say, no, I think I'll say it Gotsoma, right, at novice level. Or she says, yeah, I'm all over this. Let me go on to my full ordained nun's vows, right? Between herself and her teacher, they'll make that determination. So suppose she wants to go on further. Then the next level of vow that she receives is called Sangchu Nerne Ki Sotram. Sangchu Nerne Ki Sotram. Nerne Ki Sotram means keep the morality purely. Sotram is morality. Sangchu means pure activity. And this particular grouping is a grouping of vows that have to do with observing celibacy purely. And it's a little peculiar because our novice nun vows included no sexual activity. So that sounds like celibacy to me. And yet here's an additional vows grouping called keep celibacy purely. Keep that pure behavior purely. So there's something more to it that we wouldn't know until we got to that level. But it's an additional piece of gaining the goodness in powerful ways that increases our ability to reach the wisdom from which we can really stop perpetuating our suffering. So it doesn't say whether these vows are given for a certain period of time or not. It sounds like there are a level of vows we actually get when we choose to go on from Gelobma to Gelobma to Gelongma. And so we would carry those vows with us. So once we do decide, yes, right, I do want my full ordained vows, and the vow giver agrees, she goes on to receive her Gelongma, fully ordained nun's vows. And they come in 5 groups of vows. So the Gelongma grouping of vows is called the Tungma Dena. It means the 5 groups of downfalls. The monks' vows are called that too. Tungma Dena, the 5 groups of downfalls. Now, before we start into them, in the Tibetan tradition, in the Tibetan lineage of the tradition, years ago, there was let me start over. In the Buddhist ordination tradition started by Lord Buddha. So the instructions are given by Lord Buddha. It says, any place there are ordained, there's Sangha, four to five or more Sangha members gathering together to do confession ceremony regularly. That country that they live in is now a Buddhist country. Whether the country considers itself a Buddhist country or not, the practitioners can consider them living in a Buddhist country. So you get 4 or 5 ordained people gathering together on the new moon and the full moon to do their confession and restore all their vows. That makes a place a Buddhist country. In a Buddhist country, in order to convey intermediate nuns' vows, Sangchu Nerneki Sultram vows, and Gelong Ma vows, you need 12 fully ordained nuns, and you need a qualified abbotess, a qualified vow master to convey those vows. And in Tibet, in some period of time, there was a king who hated Buddhism, and he wanted to wipe it out. So he set about to kill the monks and nuns. And he managed to kill almost all the nuns and many, many monks before someone took it upon themselves to stop him. Right? We've heard this story. A high-level bodhisattva killed him. And, that's a different story with a different moral to the story. The purpose here is that there were no longer 12 fully ordained nuns to gather together to convey intermediate and above vows. So they could make novice nuns, but nobody could go any higher than that. And then whatever nuns were left that could do that, they passed on. And you wouldn't even have full nuns left. So they say the tradition of intermediate Sangchu Nerne Ki Sultram and Gelong Ma vows in the Tibetan lineage has been broken. Now there are full nuns in the Tibetan nunneries, but they had to have an abbot from outside Tibet. They either went to them or, I don't know who did what, but they had to go outside of the Tibetan lineages in order to receive their full nuns' vows. And so they received from Chinese masters, they received from, other ordained traditions to get their vows. The vows in the other Buddhist traditions are the same vows. So we do have fully ordained nuns. Jigme, Chuki, they're fully ordained monks, nuns, but they went right to another system to receive them. So technically, these levels 4, 5, and 6 of vows are not available in the Tibetan system, or can be received in the Tibetan country anyway. In a non-Buddhist country, you only need 6 fully ordained nuns to confer intermediate nun and above vows. The woman has to already have her novice vows. She has to have her robes. She has to have her begging bowl. And then you just need a qualified vow giver, and one would need a six fully ordained nuns together. Since the time that this class was taught in the mid-90s, a lot of, I want to say progress, but that's a little derogatory to history. A lot of change has happened. And so I don't know within the Tibetan system whether they are now back to conferring nuns' vows through the Tibetan tradition or not. What I do know is at Diamond Mountain, Geshe Michael Lama Christie conveyed full nuns' vows on a few women by gathering together the ordained people of within our lineage and Ken Rinpoche's lineage. And then later, Geshe Michael went on to convey full vows to more women. And I don't know whether he had them go through the intermediate level or not. I wasn't privy to all of that. And, it did cross my mind, how can a monk whose vows are different, the full ordained vows are different, how can a monk convey full vows on nuns if they technically don't have those full vows? And then, anyway, so the Buddhist literature, Buddhist literatures, it says if a monk changes sex more than 3 times, they lose their vows. So apparently what can happen is that through the goodness of our spiritual practice, especially at the higher levels, a balance is happening in our subtle body that may, before it comes to balance, it may swing from one relative extreme to the other. And our maleness or femaleness, we all have some level of both. For the females, our female qualities predominate. For male, our male qualities predominate. And as we're working with our subtle bodies, right, those predominances can shift. And apparently, they can shift to the extent that the opposite sexual organ can appear on the body. Right? Our subtle body work can manifest as shifting sexes. And the literature says, if that happens once as an ordained person, no problem. If it happens a second time, meaning you shift back, still no problem. But if it happens a third time, you break your vows. And it implies that you have some control over the practices that's making that happen. And I don't know about those so much. The point is that that's the clue to how it is that you could have what looks like a male ordaining females. If they're aware of the quality of femaleness in their body, and they take on the aspect necessary to be able to convey those vows. So, that's way beyond my level of perception and understanding. But so it is possible then for what looks like a male preceptor to give vows to female practitioners, and it's valid in its takes. The ideal, of course, is to have a woman preceptor nun of high esteem be the one who's giving the full nun's vows in the presence of 12 fully ordained women. In degenerate times, that's harder and harder to find. And so in an outlying country, you need at least 6, right? And you need at least somebody who can confer those vows. And so it's happening now. We do have sojong happening regularly. I mean, we know that our Sangha does it. And no doubt there are other Sanghas that are doing it too in the United States. So technically speaking, the United States is a Buddhist country, and now it takes 12 ordained people to confer these vows. And our group even can get 12 together. Our Sangha has grown. They don't all live in the same place, which is a difficulty, but okay. If a gelogma, if an intermediate nun changes sex, she becomes a getsulpa. She becomes a novice monk, because the monks don't have this intermediate stage. So then from her getsulpa, she can ask for her gelongpa and go directly there. Whether that's an advantage or not, I don't know. Okay, so we're at the level of her receiving her fully ordained nun's vows. What she receives is her tungwa dena, the 5 groups of downfalls, 5 groups of specified behaviors that she's going to avoid. These are all, I pledge to avoid, blah, blah, blah. These categories of the 5, they're hierarchical in their seriousness of damaging them. From those that are the worst down to those that are just minor. They all qualify as vows to avoid, to stop perpetuating mental afflictions through which we perpetuate our suffering. The first level, meaning the level of behaviors that to do them is the worst culprits for mental afflictions, is called pampa. Pampa means to lose in the sense of your favorite baseball team lost the championship. Not to lose in the sense of, I can't find my car keys, I've lost them. But lose versus win. Pampa means to lose. It means to be defeated. We have been defeated by our mental afflictions when a pampa is committed, is done. So it's not that anybody else is defeating us. It's we have given in to our personal competitor, which is our mental afflictions. These particular behaviors damage our vows seriously. the mental affliction that has overcome us. It's not the same mental affliction for all of the pampas, different ones, but it was strong enough to have overcome us. Some traditions say you break one pampa, you've broken all your vows. Our lineage, not just Diamond Mountain, but the Gelugpa, they say no. You break one pampa, it's serious business. You have to work hard to get that restored. And it does damage the strength of all your vows, but you don't break everything by way of that one. Their logic is, if that were true, nobody would ever gain benefit from having their ordained vows. So these pampas, there are 8 for nuns and 4 for monks. And mostly they correspond to those 4 root vows of the layperson. Not killing a human or human fetus. Although they're not killing at all, but the pampa is more specific to the human, the high karmic object killing. Second level of fully ordained vows is called plakma. Plakma means remainder, like leftovers. You make a big pot of soup, you serve it to your family, and there's like 2 servings left in the pot. We have leftovers. Plakma is that. Here it means their behaviors that when we do the behavior we've pledged to avoid, there's still something left over that we can repair. So the pampas, we need to retake the vows. With lakma, we can repair those vows. And it's just a difference in what we do to make the correction of it. But so there are less serious damage to our mind to break one of the vows that's in the category of lakma. Bless you. There are 20 lakmas for nuns and 13 for monks. The next level is called tunje. Tunje means downfalls. They're called that because they make you fall down to the lower realms. Well, any of these done and not cleaned up would make us fall down to the lower realms. But these are more specifically behaviors that have to do with the behaviors that, if that seed was our projecting karma, would be a seed that sent us to animal realm, hungry ghost, or Halbing. Remember course 8? When we learned about the specific factors, right there, they have to do with that kind of thing, more specific. Within these tunjes, downfalls, there's 2 categories of them. The category called pangtung and the category called tungje bashik. Pangtung means give up downfall, and tungje bashik means simple downfall. The give up downfall means that this is a deed that we did that damaged the vow, where to restore the vow, we have to give up something to make up for it. So my example was, suppose this nun had gotten permission to go visit her family like next month, and then this pontoon damage happens, and when she's cleaning it up, she says, to make up for that behavior that I did, I will give up that privilege of going to see my family. So sorry, family, right? I can't come because, right? I'm giving up something to fix my vow. The Tungje Bashik is a downfall that you can fix without giving up something. So just two different levels. The downfall where you give up something to fix it, there are 33 for nuns, 30 for monks. In the simple downfalls, there's 180 for nuns and 90 for monks. And again, we automatically think, why are there so many more for women, right? And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, right? There's more about women's bodies that need to be dealt with than men's bodies. Part of them have to do with that. There's the advantage of having more vows is that there's more goodness that we're gathering every minute we're not doing those behaviors. So it's actually good to have more vows than fewer vows. Do you see? It's not some punishment. You're more restricted than they are. We're anyway, you get it. It's just hard because our minds go, man, why do we get more, right? As if it's punishment, as if it's, discipline. It's making it easier. Women have it harder. So let's make it easier. Let's give them more vows so they gather their goodness, right? Bigger, faster. Mm. The next level of fully ordained vows is called Sor Shak. Shak means confess. Sor means individual. So these are downfalls that must be confessed individually to fix. So it seems like all of them need to be confessed individually to fix, but apparently these ones specifically would need to be said out loud to somebody in order for our own mind to be able to fix them properly. They're less serious than the previous. Still need to be repaired, of course. For nuns, there are 11 of them. For monks, there are 4. The next level is called Nyejes. Nyeje simply means did bad. Like these are just did bads. I did a did bad, right? The Shorshak and Nyejes, they're pretty minor verbal and physical behaviors that are a result of mental afflictions that perpetuate mental afflictions, pretty minor ones. But minor mental afflictions are just as negatively impacting us as major mental afflictions. And maybe they're worse in the sense that because they're minor, we tolerate them. And then they grow into major ones if we let them go. Master Shantideva would say, you can beat back your enemy and send them home, but they're just gonna come back again. You can't let those mental afflictions survive. They've got to be completely destroyed, which doesn't mean destroyed, it means transformed. Our reaction to things, people, situations, we transform them. To transform a mental affliction of anger into fearlessness or love, that means there's no anger left. The anger has been destroyed. but you took the power of the anger and you changed it into something else. Okay, so NAJs, the did bads, there are 112 for nuns and 112 for monks. And I don't know if they're the same 112 or not. So if you are a math whiz, then you just looked at all those numbers and recognized there are 253 monks' vows and 364 nuns' vows. Guidelines to live by through which we stop reacting from those mental afflictions. We stop perpetuating our mental afflictions. So let's take our break. I just have a little bit left of class. Let's get refreshed. Look at that word sojong. That's the end of our vocabulary list. I'm going to stop the share and pause the recording. So how do we repair our vows? Either ordained vows, lifetime lay vows, any vows. We use something called sojong. So means repair, jong means purify. So repair, purify, purify, repair. We get that as a confession ceremony, which for the ordained community, they gather twice a month, like it's established by Lord Buddha to gather twice a month, generally done on the new moon and the full moon, although different traditions can choose different days. They gather and recite the Sojong prayers. And they have a sequence, of course, and then the wording of the ceremony implies that each one confesses each thing that needs confessing individually. And in the end, it says, has everybody confessed everything? To do a wrong deed and not confess it carries its own negativity beyond the wrong deed's negativity. So confessing it doesn't always mean you have to go to somebody and confess it, right? We can confess it ourselves, meaning admit that we did something wrong, know we need to confess it, and then, mentally confess it before our being that we keep in mind or keep in our heart. But it's a powerful thing to witness ourselves being in front of someone else, presumably someone we admire enough to care what they might think, okay, about us and our behavior, and to be able to say to them, I did this wrong thing, and of course we say, I did this wrong thing, and our mind wants to justify why we did it, and etc. And maybe you include that, maybe you don't, but the point being, we're admitting to ourselves, we're watching ourselves admit to someone else, I had this mental affliction, I did this behavior, and I know that it's impacted my mind in such a way that I am very likely to do it again. And so perpetuate my own unhappiness that I've vowed to stop. So I regret it. Not shame, not guilt, not woe is me, I'll never be good enough. Just, I regret it, and I need you to hear it to help my mind say, right? I will not do it again. That person who's being the receiver of one's confession, their job is to not judge you, right? We just said, choose the person as who you're going to confess to as someone that, right, that you would feel badly about how they would think about you from what you're telling them, right? But you know that from their side, they're not going to think badly about you because they're serving as your confessor, and their job is to just be this sponge, right? And your confession goes into the sponge, and at the end of the session, they burn the sponge in a fire. So they're not supposed to remember what you've said. They're not allowed to hold it against you, right? They're not ever going to tell it to somebody else. It's all in complete confidentiality and non-judgment. So it's a skill, really, to be somebody's person that gets confessed to. It would be something we do out of great love, not out of arrogance, not out of, oh, my purity must be better than yours, right? That kind of thing. Then from our side, the one who's using that person as a confessor, right? Then we set up our parameters. Please, will you please not judge me, not remember, keep this confidential so that I can really spill my guts to you. Right? Will you please serve me in that way? It's a great honor to be somebody's confessor. And then we as the confessee, want to be able to trust them. So both ways, right? We can play both roles. We are the confessor, and we can be the confessee. The confessor meaning the one who receives, and the you get what I mean. Language fails. So, but in the Sojong ceremony, the way it appears to be done now, they gather as a group, they all say the prayer. And in the end, do you see that what you did was wrong? Yes, I see what I did was wrong. Do you pledge to not do it again? Yes, I pledge to not do it again. You never actually say to the group, I did this, 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 and this. Geshe-la said, if you were a serious monk, as you're reciting the prayer, you're thinking through your vows. Right? All these Pong tunes, all these, which ones did I do? Right? I regret. Right? You're confessing in your own mind each individual one. How you do that for 253 or 364 vows while you're reciting a prayer, I don't know. Right? So I don't know how it gets actually done. When we understand about Sojong, it has built into it the 4 powers. But when we just do the 4 powers as a recite the verse, you don't have time to stop and do the 4 powers. So for our own personal Sojong-ing, we can do the ceremony with other people, and it's useful, it's powerful to do a group purification like that. And we don't want to wait 2 whole weeks from when we did just did bad. It's gonna grow in those 2 weeks, grow in its input on our own mind. So it's not that you can only do your confession every 2 weeks. It's good to have a regular time frame to do the ceremony to formally regroup. But we're doing our 4 powers daily, maybe multiple times a day when we're careful with ourselves. Oh, nuts, I just did one. Shoot. Right, I regret it. You don't really have to even think it so terribly through if it was just a teeny one. Nuts, got me again. I regret it. I'll do this as my makeup. I will right now do 30 seconds of power of restraint. And go on with your day. The 4 powers doesn't have to take long. It just has to be on our mind. I'm talking to myself here too. It's like I get on automatic pilot and think, I'm doing good all day long, and not, right? Not watch the nuances. So 4 powers always, twice a month, sit down. You can do it before your altar and read through the confession ceremony and think about the last 2 weeks. How am I doing? Where do I want to increase my focus of activity? I think in your reading is the confession prayer. And if not, let me know. Right? I'll send it. I'm sure I have it. So our ethical life is what drives the success of our spiritual practices. Like our ethical life is our spiritual practices. That's what they're all about. And so even tiny little things like, idle speech is enough to interfere with our mind's ability to concentrate deeply enough, even while we're saying our prayers of purification, right? We could be all distracted, let alone in our meditation when we're trying to Mahamudra our way to the direct perception of the clear light nature of our own mind, right? If we've got all this rattling around because of our habits of behaviors, right? No amount of Mahamudra is going to get us to seeing our own true nature, mind's own true nature. So, Buddha says we've got 84,000 mental afflictions. Like, don't beat yourself up. That's a lot. And it's too much to work with. Even if we could do one a day and get rid of it forever in one 24-hour period of time, that's 84,000 days. I can't do the math, but it's a long time. So, we need a system. And Buddha, in his wisdom and omniscience, says, let's just boil those 84,000 down to the 10 main ones, the 10 main situations through which all these others are triggered. If we can work at that level, right, it takes the wind out of the sails of all the rest of them. And you don't have to fix all 84,000. You fix the ones that come out of these 10. What 10? Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, useless speech, jealousy, ill will, wrong view. Avoid those 10 like the plague. And the other 84,000 things will not ever arise in our minds. 10, that's doable. Just 10, right? Work with them one at a time. Work with the ones of body first and then speak, however you want to work on them, but work on them. How do we work on them? It's one thing to say, oh, I will avoid killing. And then march around in my world, where do I have the opportunity to kill and I'm not going to do it? It's another thing to say, well, what's the opposite of killing? Protecting life. How can I go through my life protecting life? Because if I do that, I'm not going to get close to killing anything, right? I don't have to tiptoe through, oh my gosh, am I killing? We're walking through where I'm protecting life, protecting life, protecting life. And then it's minor things like wear your seatbelt, insist that the people in your car wear their seatbelt, stop at the stop sign, step over the line of ants, right? All these little ways that we can be more conscientious in our protecting life that increases our sensitivity to situations where we might be inclined or faced with taking a life or contributing to taking a life. And our own karmic goodness resources will kick in an alternative choice than to just do what the automatic pilot would say, kill that thing. Now, I had a snake in my yard yesterday, and snakes are startling. You know, first you get this startle reaction, and then you check, is it dangerous or is it not? And it's in this private part of my yard that I don't know how it, I mean, there's space where it could get in, but why would it come in when it's got the whole desert around us, you know, to go anywhere at once? It comes into my bricked in patio, you know, and I'm watering the plants, and all of a sudden I hear this movement, you know, and it's like, and it's this long, slinky black with yellow rings snake. And beautiful, really beautiful. But my initial reaction is, it's dangerous. What do I do? And then my instant next was, I just watch it, you know, it's not dangerous. It's not coming at me, right? This is perfectly safe. Let's just watch it and enjoy it. I didn't have the presence of mind to say, oh, mane padme hum, will you be my student someday? I was just watching it. And it slithered along, slithered around this corner, came around the compost bin, looked inside the compost bin from the little vent, stuck its head inside there, looked around, came back out, went past the shed, around to the other corner of the wall, started to climb the wall. Like, why would a snake climb a wall? I'm fascinated at this point. I see that above the walls up against the house, and at the top two bricks, there's a gap between the brick and the wall. And I thought, I wonder if that snake's going to go up and go through that gap. You know, it was big enough if the snake squished itself. And son of a gun, it went up. It was about 5 feet off the ground, and it's just creeping itself straight up, goes in that hole and out the other side. It's like, what in the world? But it's like the whole time I'm not flipping out, oh my gosh, snake in my yard, I've got to kill it, right? I'm protecting the life of that snake. And it was, the whole thing was fascinating. I enjoyed every minute, but the first instant, right, when it was slithery snake, eek. And then fortunately, past goodness of protecting life kicked in. Instead of past snakes are dangerous, I need to do something, right? And it's like probably all of us, snakes are not dangerous. But in the olden days, that snake could have been lunch, right? I might have reacted in that way. You know, lunch, if I was starving. So protecting life, we do it even when we don't realize we're doing it. Because I had this opportunity to be mean to that snake, or even, right, take its life, and I didn't. So like that, take those 10 non-virtues, flip them around into the positive. I will protect life. So it'll reduce my likelihood of ever getting in this situation where I would take life. And then expand that to see what it looks like. I will protect others' property to the extent where people are so safe around me, right? They leave their open wallet in my care and know, you know, complete safety. Leave their children in my care, complete safety, right? The protect others' property, protect others' relationships, not just sexual relationships, but your team at work. You have got the best IT guy. I wish he worked for me, right? Yay. You have the best IT guy. May you keep them forever. instead of how can I get him to work for me? Yeah. Not interfering with others' partnerships of any kind, even promoting partnerships. Have I got an IT guy for you? Right? Promote relationships. Still killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying. Speak so truthfully, right? That we create the karma to be believed, to be respected, to be honored. Even our own self-talk, right, becomes so accurate, truthful, that our own self-guidance, right, gets stronger. Lying, harsh speech used to be kind, to add to gentleness, to add to the beauty of the world. Opposite of divisive. Praise other people to other people. Say things that will bring people together. Useless talk. Speak purposely or not at all. It's okay to be silent. We don't have to be yammering all the time. Coveting is the word. Being unhappy when someone is getting some success. Technically, whether it's success we want or happiness we want, just being unhappy when somebody else gets some happiness. Our mind makes us want to interfere in some way. So the opposite of that is really being happy with others' happiness. Being happy, helping others get the happiness they want. Moral, healthy kinds of happiness. Ill will is being disliking others such that we don't care whether they get unpleasant things, right? Being happy when something unpleasant happens to somebody we don't like is ill will. Even wishing something bad would happen to somebody we don't like. The opposite of ill will, it would be caring about the happiness of those who are having difficulty, whether we like them or not. It's the whether we like them or not piece that feels powerful in overcoming ill will, doing the opposite of ill will. And then wrong view. Wrong view is not believing karma and emptiness, not believing past and future lives, etc. But it ends up being competitiveness, looking for entertainment in things that are actually harmful, right? Wrong view manifests in many different ways. So the opposite of wrong view, of course, is right view, which would, like how that would manifest would be this really clear understanding of my interactions with others are what creates the future circumstances for everybody. Like I've skipped schools a little bit here. From the individual freedom vows level, my behavior is what creates the circumstances for my future. And how I interact with others is where I make those imprints that will become the circumstances of my future. And then for Mahayanas, it's like, right. And that's true for everybody in my future, whether they're going to be happy or not. But it's the same idea. So somehow defining what the opposite of wrong view is for us in a way that's, doable rather than theoretical. Oh, I believe in karma and emptiness. I believe in past and future lives. Yeah, we don't take that to the grocery store. That's theoretical. So somehow with our right view application, but it's important because it underlies all the rest, right? when we're convinced about this seed planting thing, that's our right view. That's now informing our decision making while we're interacting with the snake, while we're interacting with our coworkers. Our belief in mental seeds being planted by our behavior is our correct view, being on alert as we're interacting from these other perspectives of the other 9. Circumstances. Yes, Kong Ling.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, teacher, for teaching. Okay. Actually, this Vinaya, I mean, is Buddha purposely teach for, I mean, the well-being of everyone, is it? So that's why he wrote another book, or he teach. I don't think I mean normally he just taught, isn't it? He never put down in words all the teaching he has been taught, isn't it? So
Right. He
this
never write it.
okay. So that's why later eventually his follower then put it into words, for the people, I mean, who want to read it later. Okay.
Mhm.
So which means that this one, because I see from here there are many, I think, like vows for different group of people lah. So the very fundamental one is for someone to have the basic 10 first, isn't it?
Right. The basic 10 are behaviors to avoid. We don't actually ever take them as vowed behaviors because we can't, as humans, actually avoid them entirely.
Ah,
So
okay.
the 10 non-virtues are these guidelines of behavior,
And
not
and I think this one
actual
that
vow.
sorry, I think that this 10 is the very basic one that we cannot do somehow, we cannot do it. Otherwise, it will be very serious, seed planted, isn't it?
Right, right. Those 10 behaviors are the worst things that we could do if we do them with those all 4 factors, right?
Ah,
They're all negative behaviors, no matter
ah,
how many of those 4 factors we have. But
okay.
these are behaviors that if we do them with all 4 factors, that's the worst effect that we could have on our mind, right? Of all the different 84,000 things that we can do wrong, do harmful, not wrong, harmful. Harmful
Oh,
based on how they will come back to affect us.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm quite, curious that, the I think I mean the 253 at the I mean who need to, if let's say 253 for the monk or for the nun.
Monk, monk.
Monk. Okay.
253 for monk.
Actually, is there any listing for this one? Because I think it's quite a lot, 253. I mean,
Right, right. So traditionally, lay people would not be shown those texts that shows that all the different vows for the ordained
uh,
people,
uh-huh.
because the lay people are the supporters of the monastery.
Oh,
And they feel that if the lay people know the vows, they'll be judging the monks' behaviors according to the lay people's understanding of the vows. And so misjudging these high karmic objects such that the power of their offerings would not be so powerful for their minds, and of course, risking the loss of their support. So, instead of saying to the monks, tell everybody your vows and live by them for crying out loud, they say, maybe it's better for lay people not to know.
Oh,
And
okay.
then fast forward to, nowadays, anyway, let me hold that thought.
Ah.
If we attend an ordination ceremony, the vows are recited when the person takes their vows. They hear them, they say them. I will avoid blah, 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 blah. So if we're paying attention in the vow ceremony as non-ordained people, we can hear them. So, but still, we wouldn't have it written down, and who can remember 253, right, from hearing it in a ceremony. But Geshe Michael, in the translator course with Allison, have been working on translating that, that text on vows, in which they went through all the vows of all the different levels of vows that you can take. So it's been translated into English. It's not out yet, but they're finished it or very close to finishing it. So it'll be available, right, in English soon. It's only been available in Tibetan and Chinese and I don't know what other languages. So, if you can get it, you can read it. So they are available now, right? Is the long story short on that. They are available through the Mixed Nuts translator. I forget the name of it, but it's Allison's text.
Alison,
You can see them
Alison.
first.
Thank you.
Part of the danger of seeing them, if we're inclined towards them, to see them first, it's like we might look at them and go, oh man, I'm not sure I really want to live like that, right? And we get discouraged. Whereas, if our motivation to be ordained is, I don't care what they are, but I want to use that way of life to impact my mind strongly, right? Then it's better not to see them, because we would self-doubt before we even got started. So in a way, if we're inclined to want ordination, maybe go the way the system was designed of not knowing them first and then taking them. But, our minds don't think like that anymore. We want to know what we're taking the leap into, right? It's a trade-off.
Okay, I understand. Oh, I'm just curious because I
Yeah.
mean the figure wise 253, and then I just wonder, I mean, what is inside? Yeah.
I know. I mean, I can't imagine even knowing 364 vows, but when I look at my little book, I don't know, number, 258 is that. I don't know that. But I have a sense of all those behaviors. And I've got, I don't know, I've got in the close to 300s. And not even none with fully ordained nuns vows. So somebody else has the same number of vows as me, plus their fully ordained nuns vows. They're in the 600 level of stuff. You can't track that every day. That's where the system of the 6 times book, right? You rotate them. You end up going through all of them, in a year or so at least. But they're in groups of similar behaviors, right? It's doable. It's doable.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So as we've heard, that the impact on our mind of taking a vow to avoid a behavior makes avoiding that behavior a stronger impact than when we just say, I will avoid it. Right? To take a vow to avoid it is a stronger impact on our mind planting seeds when we are in the situation of that, where that behavior could be an option. Keeping that vow deliberately is a more powerful, positive karmic imprint. That our natural inclination to be nice is seeds from past lives, mostly. And we're using them up as we go. And assuming that my niceness will last my whole life, because we believe my niceness is a quality of me, not imprinted factors from past life that I'm using up. So the tendency is for someone not on their path is, they're kind and they're kind and they're kind on automatic pilot. And as they grow older, they're using up their kindness seeds and their world seems to deteriorate. And things get harder. And then because they haven't really made effort to be nice, they just were nice naturally, it becomes harder to be nice, right? And a nice person becomes a grumpy old person. And, it makes sense. They hurt, they're tired, right? They can't do the things they want to do. There's all kinds of reasons why we'd be grumpy as an old person. But those are surface reasons. They're not the underlying reason was that they used up their niceness from past lives. Well, didn't they imprint niceness by being nice? Yes, but they weren't imprinted strongly enough to be ripening in this life. You'll still get another life where you're probably nice on automatic pilot, but we want to be nice on purpose, off automatic pilot, so that we are intentionally planting these seeds in a strong, powerful way. By taking vows to be nice, you know what I mean, specific vows for specific avoiding specific behaviors. It's like I determine I will get off automatic pilot and do this niceness by choice from a Vinaya perspective so that I can stop all my mental afflictions forever. From a Mahayana perspective, so that I can help everybody stop their suffering, because all their suffering is just driven by this big mistake that's perpetuated in our minds by staying on automatic pilot. But I can't just tell them, look, get off automatic pilot and you'll stop suffering, because maybe I have the seeds for them to want to hear it, and probably I don't, because I didn't want to hear what they had to say to me, right, in the past. All right. So does all this mean that in order to reach our highest spiritual goals, we have to become ordained? No, not at all. We don't even have to ever take vows, technically. Do you want to speed up the process? Yes. Then at least take lifetime lay vows as a human and keep them, right? Taking them and not keeping is not useful. Take them and keep them. Every now and then do your one-day vows on, special days. If you feel like that's not enough for your own mind, and you really want to declare yourself as rejecting worldly life behavior, there's the option of taking ordained vows. Ideally, you would leave the home life and go live in a monastery. Ideally, that would be a monastery where the Mahayana is being taught also, right? If we're Mahayana. But even that isn't absolutely necessary for the ordained community, in these modern times where we don't have communities of support to support the monastic community so that they can focus on their study and practice and say the prayers for the people, right? We're in a world now where people get to say their prayers themselves. They get to learn them. They get to do the practices themselves. We don't need to rely on the monastics to do it for us because we can read and write and practice now. So in a sense, being an ordained person is harder because we don't live surrounded by other people trying to live in the same way. It's up to us to extrapolate how to live amongst other apparently non-ordained people from an ordained way. Probably they don't even know you're ordained, right? Our community doesn't know who Smati and I, right, are in this arena. But we still hold ourselves to those vows. And we fortunately have the kind of karma that, when we say, no, we don't drink, people just go, fine. They don't go, why? What's the matter with you, right? Do you think I'm wrong for drinking? They just like, okay, great. We just leave it. But people aren't necessarily always that kind. Okay, so one last thing is that when we do take our vows, when we take our lifetime lay vows, our motivation is supposed to have in it, I am doing this for my lifetime. I'm going to take these vows and I'm going to keep them until this body dies. And I don't care, if I'm 99 years old and I'm living in a home, I still want to live according to my 5 lifetime layperson's vows. So wherever I live, I need them to know that. And when they take care of me, right, I need them to take care of me in a way that doesn't put me in the position of doing any of my lifetime lay vows. That's a worry. That's a worry I have, getting closer and closer to that. It's like you put me into a care home, they're not going to know about my vows. And even if I have somebody who says, she lives according to these vows, they'll go, yeah, fine, right? We'll take care of it. But it's not their practice, it's my practice. And what happens when I get to the point where my practice can only happen in my head and not my body, or the other way around, in my body and not my head? What happens then? It's like there aren't any old folks' homes for spiritual practitioners. It's not even legal to restrict them in the United States to that if you want funding. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. If we have our ordained vows, when we take our ordained vows, our intention is to keep them for life. We know those vows go when we die, but our intention is these are for my whole lifetime. But maybe somewhere along the way, I don't know, circumstances change and you recognize that, maybe having your ordained vows, but living in the outer world is negatively impacting your mind or other people's minds. Not that you can't keep your vows and you quit, but that you're keeping your vows and somehow, right, your impact on others is somehow limited in that way, right? We could imagine it. that if you were a monk wearing robes everywhere and it was attracting attention and you were getting like attention and fame and like that's the opposite of why you became a monk, right? You became a monk to leave that home life and fame. But now because you're a monk, because of your goodness, you're attracting fame. You might say to yourself, gosh, it would be better for me to go back to be looking like an ordinary person. Probably they're still living according to those vows, but they might give back their robes. You can give back your ordained vows anytime you feel the need. Right? We are free to do so. And there's a ceremony through which we do so. And, it's an impact on our mind that will interfere in the future in some way, but it's not such a bad thing that it isn't an option for those who might be aware of someone giving back their vows. The important piece is that we are very likely to judge them in some way. And do you remember Buddha said, if you are me or someone like me, you can judge another. And if you are not me, meaning omniscient, you're gonna fail in your judgment. You're gonna be wrong. And your wrong judgment's gonna send you to a lower realm. So don't judge them, right? Don't judge them negatively. Maybe even judge them positively in the sense that, gosh, they were honest enough with themselves to see that that lifestyle that they had pledged to isn't right for them anymore. And they were honest enough to let the world see that. Even if the world thinks, oh, they must have failed as a monk, right? The world doesn't know what they're thinking. So we do have the option. Even with our 5 lifetime lay vows, we can give vows back anytime we want. There's a method to doing so. But the thing is, when we're taking the vow, okay, and we're motivated to get my vow, if our mind is thinking, and if it doesn't go well, I'll just give it back, we won't get the vow. So we want this full-on commitment when we take the vow. But if along the way, there's some reason, good reason, we need to give them back, we can do so. Right? Really, it's a system set up for success. It's quite beautiful. Vows are not restrictions. Vows are guidelines of behavior that are designed to make our lives easier, not harder. Because we don't have to stop and figure out what choice. Just match the situation with the vow and don't do what the vow says to avoid, do the opposite. So once upon a time, I sat down with all my vows and I wrote out what would be the opposite of this one, right? They're all don't do this. What would be the opposite? What would be the opposite? What would be the opposite? When I looked at all of those with their different categories, they are all behaviors through which we would create a long, healthy life, abundance, healthy, sustainable partnerships, the ability to speak and be heard and valued in our speech, so able to teach. What are Geshe Michael's 5? Abundance, long life, partnership,
Healthy.
Health, health,
Inner peace.
inner peace, right?
inner peace, and
The
good
role
friends.
model.
Right? And save the world. So it's like, oh my gosh, all these things I pledge to avoid, when I do their opposite, I am making the seeds for those 5, and in the 5th, to be the one that guides others to it too. It's so beautiful when I piece that all together. It's like, it is meant for success. If we just go with the program, Geshe says it often, just go with the program. You don't need to know all these details. That's what Lumrim is for. You don't know the details. You just need to be inspired by the stories to go with the program. And if you can stay inspired by the stories to stay on the program, that's enough. If you need the details to keep you on the program, that's what this ACI is for. You know, our minds are different. So, but either way, it's like, oh my gosh, it doesn't have to be so hard. Just go with the program. All right. So the program is take and keep your vows at whatever level is right for you. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We've learned a lot that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And then carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.
Thank you,
teacher.